The day Nora Callahan rode into Red Rock Flats, 3 men lost their nerve and 1 lost his hat. She came in from the north, through a wall of red dust so thick it looked like the land itself was bleeding. Her horse was black as a funeral suit, her eyes were the color of storm clouds just before lightning decides where to strike, and the rifle across her saddle wasn't decorative. The town watched her from behind glass and door frames. Nobody stepped out to greet her. Nobody offered water. Nobody even smiled. That was fine. Nora hadn't come to Red Rock Flats for smiles. She'd come because a man named Harlan Dusk had taken everything from her, her land, her brother, and the last good year she'd ever known, and she tracked him across 4 counties, 2 rivers, and a stretch of desert that had already killed better people than her. The sheriff watched from his porch, chewing something that had lost its flavor 2 hours ago. He said to nobody in particular, "God Almighty, not another one." He'd seen women like Nora before. Angry women. Dangerous women. Women who rode into towns with vengeance written all over their faces like a wanted poster. Every single one of them had either ended up dead, in a cell, or quietly talked out of whatever fire was burning them alive. He fully expected the same for this one. What he didn't expect, what none of them expected, was the cowboy sitting alone in the corner of the Silver Spur Saloon, nursing a whiskey he hadn't actually touched. Waiting for something he didn't even know he was waiting for. His name was Cole Dannon. And the moment Nora Callahan pushed through those saloon doors, every single thing in his quiet, careful, deliberately empty life changed. But here's the question nobody in Red Rock Flats thought to ask until it was far too late. Was Cole Dannon there to help her? Or was he the reason Harlan Dusk sent her there in the first place? The Silver Spur smelled like old whiskey, older wood, and the particular kind of desperation that collects in rooms where men go to forget they have something to lose. Nora stood in the doorway long enough to count the exits. Front door she'd just come through, a back hallway beside the bar that probably led to a kitchen or an alley, 2 windows facing the street. One of them cracked. 7 men seated. 2 at the bar, 3 at a card table near the far wall, 1 asleep in a chair that looked like it had been holding him up for 3 days. And 1, just 1, sitting alone in the corner like he was waiting for a train that didn't come through these parts anymore. She didn't look at him long. That was a mistake she'd realize later. She walked to the bar, set a coin on the counter, and said, "Water." The barkeep, a wide man with forearms like fence posts, looked at the coin, then looked at her. Then looked at the coin again like it might have changed since the first time. "We got whiskey," he said. "I didn't ask for whiskey. We got beer. I asked for water." He studied her. Not the way men usually studied her, measuring distance and weakness. This was more like the way you study a weather vane when the sky can't decide what it wants to do. "Water's extra," he said finally. She didn't argue. She put another coin on the bar. The card table had gone quiet. She could feel it without turning around, the conversation stopping mid-sentence, cards held still, eyes moving. It was a specific kind of quiet. The kind that preceded either violence or spectacle, and those 2 things lived close enough together in places like this that the difference was mostly a matter of who started it. "You passing through?" the barkeep asked, setting down a glass that was clean enough. "Looking for a man." That pulled a low sound from the card table. Not quite a laugh. More like the shadow of one. "Harlan Dusk," she said, and the shadow disappeared entirely. The room didn't just go quiet. It went cold. Even the man who'd been asleep in the chair seemed to stiffen, though his eyes stayed closed. The barkeep set down the cloth he'd been using to wipe the counter. "Don't know the name," he said. He was lying. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes found a point on the wall just past her shoulder, and held there like it was the safest place to look. "That's all right," she said. "I didn't come here to ask the bar." She picked up her water, turned around, and walked directly to the card table. 3 men looked up at her. One of them, red-faced, soft around the middle, with the kind of confidence that only comes from never having been genuinely threatened, leaned back in his chair and looked her over with a slow, deliberate appreciation that was meant to make her feel small. "Well now," he said. "Ain't you something?" "Harlan Dusk," she said. "Where is he?" "Lady, I don't know who don't," she said, quietly. "Don't start with that, because I've ridden 4 days without a full night of sleep. I lost a good canteen somewhere back near the canyon. And I've already had one man this week try to tell me something I knew wasn't true. I'm asking you plain, and I'm asking you once." The red-faced man's expression shifted. Something beneath the confidence cracked, just a little, like a hairline fracture in dry wood. "You got some nerve walking in here and 2 miles east of town," said a voice from the corner. Everyone turned. The man at the corner table hadn't moved. His hat was pushed back just enough to see his eyes, which were steady and brown and gave nothing away. He was lean in the way that men get lean when they've lived hard and moved often, not starved, just stripped of anything unnecessary. His hands were on the table, visible, which Nora noted as a deliberate thing. A man who wanted you to know he wasn't reaching. "Old Dawson property," he continued. "Took it over about 6 weeks ago. Got maybe 8 men with him." The red-faced man at the card table looked at the corner with an expression that mixed fear with fury. "Cole, what in the hell? Sit down, Warren," the man in the corner said. Warren sat down. Nora looked at the man called Cole for a long moment. He looked back with the same steadiness. No hunger in his expression. No performance. Just information, offered the way you'd point someone toward the road if they were lost. She walked to his table. Stood across from him. "Why'd you tell me that?" He considered the question seriously, which she hadn't expected. "Because you were going to find out one way or another," he said. "And this way's faster. You know Harlan Dusk?" A pause that lasted exactly long enough to be honest. "I know of him." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." She studied him. He let her. Most men got uncomfortable under a long look from a woman who wasn't admiring them. This one just sat there like he had all afternoon and nothing else planned. 8 men, she said. "At least. Could be more by now. He's been recruiting. And you're telling me this because—" Cole Dannon picked up his whiskey, looked at it, and set it back down untouched. "Because someone should have told you sooner," he said. "Before you rode another mile into something that'd bury you." She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. But she also didn't walk away. And that, right there, was the moment the story stopped being about one person and became something neither of them had planned. Cole Dannon hadn't planned on caring about anything when he rode into Red Rock Flats. That was the design. That was the entire, carefully constructed point. He'd spent the last 14 months building a life that looked like nothing, no roots, no debts, no names that mattered in any county he passed through. He'd had roots once. He'd had a name that mattered. He'd had a family and a purpose and all the things that make a man feel like he's standing on solid ground. Then Harlan Dusk had come through his county, and Cole had learned something that still sat in the bottom of his chest like a swallowed stone. Solid ground is only solid until someone decides to burn it. He hadn't told Nora Callahan any of that. He told her, 8 men 2 miles east, Old Dawson property. She told him, her name, her brother. And the fact that Harlan Dusk had paid 3 men to testify falsely in a land court that left her family holding nothing but debt, and a deed that no longer meant anything. They sat at that corner table while the saloon gradually resumed its noise around them, pretending not to listen in the transparent way that small-town people pretend things. "Your brother," Cole said. "He's still alive?" Her jaw tightened. It was the smallest movement, barely visible, but it told him everything. "Alive?" she said. "Not well. What did they do to him?" She looked at him steadily. "He tried to fight back when they came to take the land. 4 of Dusk's men held him down and broke both his hands. A beat. He's a carpenter. Was a carpenter. Cole absorbed that. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me. He shook his head. I'm not a gun for hire. I'm not hiring you. I'm asking you. She tilted her head slightly. You already told me where he is. You're already involved, whether you meant to be or not. That was true. He recognized it as true the moment he'd opened his mouth in the saloon. He'd known it even as he was speaking. Some part of him, the part he'd spent 14 months trying to quiet, had seen this woman walk through the door and made a decision before his conscious mind could object. He wasn't proud of that. He was also, for the first time in 14 months, not entirely numb. What exactly is your plan? He asked. Ride onto a property with 8 armed men, demand justice, and hope for the best? I have a plan. I'm sure you do. You don't believe me. I believe you have something, he said. I'm not sure plan is the right word. She reached into the inside pocket of her duster and placed a folded paper on the table. He opened it carefully. It was a document, legal, stamped, signed, from the land registry office in the county seat, 3 counties north. He read it slowly. Read it again. This reverses the court ruling, he said. It does. How'd you get this? Turns out one of the 3 men who gave false testimony had a conscience that started talking when he got sick. A cold kind of smile touched the edge of her mouth. He dictated a full confession to his preacher, signed it, and the preacher sent it to the registry. The ruling was overturned 2 weeks ago. The land is legally ours again. Cole set the paper down. So why do you need me? If you have the legal document, because Harlan Dusk doesn't care about legal documents. Her voice stayed flat and even, which was somehow more chilling than anger would have been. He has 8 men and he's sitting on my land and the sheriff of this county. She glanced toward the window. Toward the porch where she'd seen the lawman chewing his slow thoughts on the way in. Is not exactly racing to enforce the registry. No, Cole said. He wouldn't be. You know the sheriff too? I know the type. Outside, the wind came up and threw a curtain of red dust against the window. The glass shuddered. Somewhere down the street, a door banged open and banged shut. The afternoon was aging badly, turning the color of rust and fire on the horizon. Cole looked at the document again. Looked at the woman across from him. He thought about 14 months of careful emptiness. He thought about the stone in his chest. He thought about a night 3 years ago when a man named Harlan Dusk had sat across a different table, in a different county, and shaken his hand and smiled like a man who had nothing to hide. There's something you should know about me, he said. She waited. I'm not who I appear to be. He said it simply, without drama. And before we go any further, you deserve to know that, even if I can't explain it all right now. The storm-colored eyes held his without blinking. Are you going to get me killed? No. Are you working for Harlan Dusk? The stone shifted in his chest. No. Not anymore. The silence between them stretched out like the desert, wide, dry, and full of things that hadn't been said yet. She picked up the document, folded it, put it back in her pocket. Then we can talk, she said. But understand something, Cole Dannon. If I find out you've lied to me, I won't just walk away. I know, he said. Do you? He looked at her and saw it clearly, the grief packed tight beneath the anger, the exhaustion painted over with something harder. He saw someone who had been tested past reasonable limits and had simply refused to break, not because she was invincible, but because she couldn't afford to be anything else. Yes, he said. I do. He finally picked up the whiskey he hadn't touched all afternoon. Set it back down again. 8 men is too many for 2 people, he said. But I know 3 others in this county who might listen. Why would they listen to you? He looked at her evenly. Because they owe me. And because they know what Harlan Dusk is. The wind hit the window again. The glass shuddered again. And Cole Dannon, who had ridden into Red Rock Flats 14 months ago with the intention of disappearing quietly and permanently, started making a plan. The first man's name was Prentice Hale, and he lived 6 miles north of Red Rock Flats in a house that looked like it had given up arguing with the weather. Cole rode out that evening with Nora beside him, the sun bleeding out along the western ridge, the road ahead turning purple and gray in the fading light. They didn't talk much on the way. That was fine. Cole had learned that some conversations need silence around them to mean anything. Prentice answered the door with a shotgun. He lowered it when he saw Cole. "Damn fool," he said. "Riding up in the dark." "It's dusk, Prentice." "Same thing." He looked at Nora. "Who's she?" "Nora Callahan. She's got a claim on land that Harlan Dusk is currently occupying." Prentice was a small man, lean and weathered, with hands that had been broken and healed imperfectly so many times that they moved at odd angles. He stood in the doorway for a long moment studying the middle distance between them. And Cole could see him doing the calculation, the weight of what he was owed against the weight of what was being asked. "Come in," he said finally. Inside, the house was spare but not neglected. A fire going, a pot on it that smelled like beans and salt pork. A rifle on the wall, a handgun on the table within easy reach. A man who had arranged his life around the fact that peace was temporary and preparation wasn't paranoia. "Dusk," Prentice said, pouring coffee. "Last I heard he was running a land scheme up north." "He moved operations," Cole said. "He's got the old Dawson property and 8 men minimum. And I want to escort Miss Callahan onto her legally restored land with enough presence that Dusk's people think twice about making it a fight." Prentice handed Nora a cup of coffee and looked at her directly for the first time. "It's a legal document?" he asked. "It is," she said. "Can I see it?" She showed him. He read it carefully, which Cole respected. A man who reads things carefully before committing is a man worth having. "The sheriff?" Prentice asked. "Won't act," Cole said. "Figures." He handed the document back to Nora. "You know what you're walking into, miss? Harlan Dusk didn't get where he is by backing down from paper." "I know what I'm walking into," she said. He studied her again with those imperfectly healed hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "Yes," he said quietly. "I believe you do." He looked at Cole. "Who else you asking?" "Daniels and Royce." Prentice made a sound that might have been a laugh in better lighting. "Daniels will come. Royce'll take convincing. That's why I'm asking Daniels first." They rode to find Tom Daniels next, a tall, raw-boned man who repaired saddles for a living and had once, 3 years ago, done something for Cole that Cole had never fully explained to anyone and never would. Daniels listened to the situation standing in his workshop, running a strip of leather through his hands, and said yes before Cole had finished the second sentence. He said it the way men say yes when they've been waiting for a reason. Royce was harder. Luther Royce lived alone on a small homestead east of town, and when they rode up he was already standing outside in the dark like he'd heard them coming from a mile away, which was possible. Luther Royce was the kind of man who didn't relax, not because he was anxious but because he decided the world didn't deserve that from him. He was also the best shot in 4 counties. "Cole," he said. Not a greeting. Just an acknowledgement. "Luther. Whatever you're asking, I'm going to need more reason than you standing here." Cole dismounted. Stood in the dirt and the dark with his hands visible, same as he'd sat in the saloon, deliberate, offering nothing threatening. "You told me once," Cole said, "that you wished you'd been there the night Dusk's men burned the Carey farm." Something shifted in Royce's expression. It wasn't visible in the ordinary sense. It was more like a pressure change, the way the air shifts before a storm even before the clouds form. "This is connected to that?" he asked. "Same man. Different land. Same method." Royce looked at Nora. She looked back at him without flinching. "Your people?" he asked. "My family," she said. "My land. My brother's hands. The night insects were loud around them. Somewhere far off, a coyote announced something to the darkness, and the darkness didn't answer. 2 miles east of town, Royce said, and it wasn't a question. Yes, Cole said. You knew? I suspected. He paused. I've been watching the Dawson property for 2 weeks. Counting riders. Making note of patterns. He looked at Cole with an expression that was not quite accusatory but was measuring something. I was wondering what you were waiting for. The right reason, Cole said. Royce nodded slowly. When? Morning after tomorrow. We want the light behind us. Agreed. On the ride back to Red Rock Flats, Nora rode alongside Cole for a mile in silence before she said, They trust you. They know me. That's not the same thing. He thought about that. No, he said. It's not. What did Daniels do for you? She asked. The thing you clearly owe him for. He got me out of a situation I'd gotten myself into. What situation? Cole looked out at the dark desert. At the shapes of rock and brush that existed in that landscape like they'd been placed by someone who understood how to communicate solitude. 3 years ago, he said, I was working for Harlan Dusk. He heard her breath shift. Not doing what he does now, Cole continued, voice steady. Or so I thought. I was muscle. Transportation. I moved things and people and information, and I told myself I didn't need to know the details because the pay was clean and the work wasn't directly bloody. He paused. Then I found out what the details were. And I made a choice to leave. And leaving Harlan Dusk is not something he allows lightly. Daniels helped you leave. Daniels helped me survive leaving. She was quiet for a long moment. The horses moved through the dark, their hooves soft on the packed earth. And Dusk knows you're here? She asked. Probably. Then this isn't just about my land. No, Cole said. It probably isn't. He could feel her processing that. Recalculating. You should have told me sooner, she said. Yes, he agreed. I should have. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She rode in silence for another quarter mile, and then she said, You're not changing the plan. No, he said. Then we moved forward. The lights of Red Rock Flats appeared below them, scattered and yellow in the dark like something dropped and forgotten. And Cole Dannon thought, this is what happens when you stop trying to disappear. The world finds things for you to stand in front of. They left at first light, when the sky was the color of an old wound and the desert smelled like cold stone and something faintly electrical, as if the air itself was bracing. 5 riders. Cole and Nora, Prentice and Daniels flanking wide, Royce trailing by 20 yards on the left, a position Cole recognized as deliberate. Royce wanted a sideline across the whole group and everything ahead. He was already working. The road to the old Dawson property was barely a road. It was more a suggestion of direction, 2 faint tracks where wagons had once moved, now overgrown at the edges with scrub that grabbed at the horse's legs if you drifted wide. 2 miles felt longer in the early morning silence. Nobody talked. That was right. There was a kind of professional quiet that came over people when the situation was serious, and everyone present understood it. No performance. No bravado. Just the sound of horses and wind and the blood moving through your own ears. Cole rode with his rifle in the saddle scabbard and his revolver at his hip and a second small piece in his boot that only Prentice knew about. He thought about Harlan Dusk. He thought about the shape of the man, heavy-set, deliberate in his movements, with a smile that arrived at exactly the right social moment, and never once reached his eyes. Cole had admired him once. That was the honest truth, and Cole held it like something hot and uncomfortable because he believed that honesty about your own failures was the only currency worth keeping. He'd admired Dusk's efficiency. The way the man could assess a situation and find the precise point of pressure. Cole had been young enough and hungry enough to mistake that for leadership. Now he understood it was just predation with good manners. Beside him, Nora rode straight-backed and steady, her rifle across her saddle and a mirror of her posture when she'd ridden into town 2 days ago. She'd been quiet since the previous night. Not cold. Not distant. Just collected. She'd taken what he told her about his history with Dusk and filed it somewhere useful rather than letting it unravel her. That quality, the ability to take a painful truth and make it useful rather than letting it unmake you, was, Cole thought, rarer than any skill he'd ever seen a person demonstrate. The property appeared as they crested a low rise, a main house in reasonable repair, 2 outbuildings, a corral with 8 horses. Cole counted the horses automatically. Checked them against the number Royce had confirmed yesterday evening. 8 horses, he said quietly. 9, Royce said from behind them, without apparent effort. There's a roan behind the smaller building. 9 riders. 5 of them. Cole felt the arithmetic settle into his chest alongside the stone that already lived there. They rode down the rise at a walk, making no attempt at concealment. You couldn't approach something like this with stealth, not with 5 riders in open country. The best you could do was come openly, deliberately, with enough composure to make the men on the other side hesitate long enough to think rather than react. The reaction from the property was immediate. 2 men appeared at the corner of the main house. Then a third at the corral fence. Then a fourth in the upstairs window of the house. That was important, Cole noted. Elevation. They stopped 30 yards out. Cole said to Nora quietly, "You have the document." "Yes." "Let me speak first. Then you." "Why?" "Because they don't know who you are yet. Once they know, the dynamic changes. I want them slightly off balance before that happens." She considered this for exactly the length of time it deserved. "Fine," she said. Cole raised his voice. "We're here to see Harlan Dusk. On a legal matter. Nobody needs to have a bad morning." One of the men at the corner of the house, tall, with a red kerchief at his throat, called back, "Mr. Dusk don't take visitors without an appointment." "Then consider this the appointment." A pause. The man with the kerchief looked at the window above, where the fourth man was positioned. Some kind of communication happened. Then the front door of the main house opened. And Harlan Dusk walked out. He was exactly as Cole remembered. Heavy-set, deliberate, wearing a good hat and a coat that was too clean for a man living on a working property. The smile appeared on schedule, practiced, calibrated, arriving at the precise social moment where smiling suggested control rather than nerves. His eyes found Cole immediately. The smile didn't falter, which told Cole that Dusk had already known he was in the county. Probably known since Cole rode in 14 months ago. "Cole Dannon," Dusk said warmly. As if they were old friends meeting at a fair. "I wondered when you'd come out from hiding." "Not hiding, Harlan. Waiting." "For what?" Cole nodded to Nora. She reached into her duster, produced the document, and held it up where it could be seen. "My name is Nora Callahan," she said, and her voice carried across that 30 yards of morning air like something that had been aimed. "The land you're standing on was restored to my family by order of the land registry, signed and certified 14 days ago. I have the original document and 2 certified copies. The ruling that transferred this land was based on false testimony, and that has been established by formal confession and registered in the county record." Dusk's smile held. His eyes didn't change. "Miss Callahan," he said pleasantly, "I'd invite you in for coffee, but I'm afraid there's been some misunderstanding." "There hasn't," she said. "You see, I have my own documentation. Your documentation is void," she said. "Filed under a ruling that no longer stands. Legally, you and your men are trespassing. I'm asking you to leave peaceably today, and I'm giving you that option before I involve the county registry enforcement and the territorial marshal." Something moved through the men at the corner of the house. A shifting. The weight of the moment pressing on them. And Harlan Dusk stopped smiling. Not dramatically. It faded slowly, the way daylight fades, gradually and then completely. What was left underneath was something Cole recognized from a night 3 years ago when he told Dusk he was leaving. A cold, comprehensive assessment. The look of a man deciding not whether to respond, but how. Cole, Dusk said, and now his voice had lost its warmth entirely. You should have stayed hidden. Probably, Cole said. In the window above, the fourth man raised a rifle. Royce, from 20 yards behind and to the left, said calmly, I'd set that down, friend. The man in the window froze. Both hands visible, Royce said, as if he was explaining something simple to someone slow. Or we find out which of us is faster, and I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. The rifle disappeared from the window. Cole kept his eyes on Dusk. Last time, he said. Legal matter. Nobody has a bad morning. You leave the property and we're done. Harlan. Dusk looked at him across 30 yards of morning light with something that had gone beyond anger into a territory Cole didn't have a word for, a deep, cold fury at being denied, at the world refusing to arrange itself the way it was supposed to. This isn't over, Dusk said. It is for today, Cole said. And that's all we're handling today. They didn't leave. That was the thing nobody had fully planned for, the variable that even Royce's careful counting of horses and patterns hadn't accounted for. Harlan. Dusk walked back into the house, and his men shifted and regrouped and looked at each other with the specific expression of people who had been told something privately, and were now trying to make it look public. 2 men drifted casually to the far side of the corral. One disappeared around the back of the smaller outbuilding. Cole saw all of it, and felt something tighten in his spine. They're not packing up, Nora said quietly. No. What does that mean? It means Dusk has decided the document isn't his problem. Cole kept his voice even. Which means he's either not worried about the territorial marshal, or he's planning something that makes the territorial marshal irrelevant. Prentice, on his right, said, We should move back up the rise. If we retreat, we lose the position. If we stay, we're stationary targets. He was right. Cole looked at the property. At the men shifting like chess pieces being quietly repositioned. At the house, where the curtains on the ground floor had been drawn, which meant people moving behind them. Nora, Cole said. I heard. We need to. I'm not leaving my land. For today, he said. Just for today. We ride to the county seat, we get the territorial marshal in person. And we come back with authority that Dusk can't simply outlast. That takes 2 days minimum. Yes. He'll entrench further in 2 days. Yes, Cole admitted. But he also won't kill us in 2 days, which is what he's planning to do if we stay here long enough for him to position his people. She looked at the property. Her jaw worked. He could see the calculation and the grief and the fury all moving through her at once, a weather system that she was managing through nothing but sheer will. If we leave, she said, this was nothing. If we die, this was also nothing. She turned to look at him. You're afraid. Yes, he said simply. Something softened in her expression, just slightly, just enough. Not because she'd wanted him to be afraid, but because an honest man admitting fear is more reassuring than a confident man pretending to have none. All right, she said. We ride for the county seat. They pulled back up the rise, turning their horses slowly, deliberately, the way you turn away from something dangerous, without running, without invitation. Just removing the opportunity for a spark. They were halfway up the rise when the shot came. It came from the smaller outbuilding, not from the house, not from any of the positions they'd been watching. The man who drifted around the back had found a different angle, a better angle, and he'd waited for them to turn before taking it. The bullet passed through the top of Cole's left arm. He didn't fall. The pain was enormous and immediate, and then, the way pain does when there's no time for it, it stepped back and waited. He heard Nora shout something. Heard Royce's return fire, one shot, just one, and heard a sound from behind the smaller building that told him it had counted. Then they were over the rise and riding hard, the property behind them, the dust rising, and the morning which had been cold and electrical was now hot and ringing and completely irreversibly different from what it had been an hour ago. They didn't stop until they were a mile out. Cole dismounted carefully, using one arm. Prentice was beside him immediately, already cutting his sleeve away with a knife that appeared from somewhere without ceremony. Through and through, Prentice said after a moment. Messy but not dangerous if we pack it right. Pack it right? Cole said. His eyes were on Nora, who had dismounted and was standing 10 feet away with her back to the group, looking south, looking at nothing. Her shoulders were carrying something enormous and invisible. Daniels was on watch. Royce had already ridden back 100 yards to ensure no pursuit. Cole let Prentice work on his arm and kept watching Nora. After a long minute, she turned around. Her face was composed. Her eyes were bright in a way that might have been tears or might have been fury, and were probably both. I'm sorry, Cole said. Don't be. I should have seen that angle. So should I. She came and stood near him, looking at the wound with the direct, unsentimental assessment of someone who had seen injury before. This changes things. It changes the timeline, he agreed. Not the outcome. You don't know that. No, he said. But I believe it. She studied him. Why? She asked. Not challenging him, genuinely asking. He thought about it while Prentice worked, and the desert sun climbed and the dust settled back into its ancient patience around them. Because Dusk just made a mistake, Cole said. He shot at 5 witnesses on a legal call. He can claim all the paperwork he wants now, but there are 5 people who can testify to what happened here this morning. That changes his position from complicated to criminal. Something lit in her expression. The territorial marshal. We go today. Not tomorrow. Today. He looked at Daniels, at Prentice, at Royce returning from his backward watch. We all go. All 5 of us. We walk into that marshal's office together, and we tell exactly what happened, and we show the document. And we ask for a formal enforcement party. Prentice tied the last of the bandage and stepped back. He'll come? For an assault on people serving a legal document? Cole flexed his arm carefully. He'll have to. It's a federal matter now. Nora looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something he hadn't expected. She reached out and put her hand briefly on his good arm, not a romantic gesture, not a soft one. Something firmer than that. The kind of contact that says, I hear you, I believe you, and I'm still standing. Then let's ride, she said. And she walked to her horse and mounted without looking back. Cole stood in the red dust for one more second, his arm throbbing, his mind moving through everything that still needed to happen, and he thought 14 months of trying to disappear. And here is the thing that wouldn't let him. Not the violence. Not the obligation. The simple, stubborn, irreducible fact of a person who deserved better than what the world had given her. He mounted his horse. They rode for the county seat. The territorial marshal's name was Eddie's Crane, and he was a small man with a large reputation and the kind of eyes that had absorbed so much human dishonesty that they developed a permanent squint. As if the light of deception was physically painful. He listened to all 5 of them without interrupting. Then he looked at the document. Then he looked at Cole's bandaged arm. Then he said, You understand that if I ride out there and this man has left the property, we've done a lot of moving for nothing. He won't have left, Cole said. He's got too much invested. And he knows that leaving makes the document uncontested. Marshal Crane looked at the ceiling for a moment, which appeared to be where he kept his decisions. Then he stood up and went to the door and said to someone outside, Get Patterson and Webb and tell them to bring extra ammunition. He came back and looked at Nora. Miss Callahan? This document is valid. The property is yours under current registry law. I'm going to escort you to take possession, and if anyone on that property raises a weapon, They will be arrested and the assault charge on this gentleman's arm will be added to their accounting. He nodded at Cole's arm. You all ride with me and you stay behind me when we approach. Clear? Clear, Nora said. And you, Crane pointed at Cole. You stay calm and visible. I know who you are and I know your history with Dusk, and I need you to not give anyone a reason to say this was personal. It is personal, Cole said honestly. I know that too, the marshal said. That's why I said I need you to not give anyone a reason to say it. They rode back through the afternoon, 8 riders now. The marshal's authority creating a different kind of gravity around the group. The desert looked the same, red and vast and indifferent, but the mission moving through it had changed shape. This was no longer 5 people going to demand what was right. This was the law going to enforce what was already decided. Dusk was on the porch when they arrived. He'd had time to think, and the thinking had changed his posture. He was standing rather than seated, which meant he hadn't fully decided what to do. Cole could read that. A man who's decided sits down and waits. A man still deciding stands. Crane didn't stop 30 yards out. He rode to 15 and stopped there, deliberately close. Harlan Dusk, he said. His voice was the opposite of theatrical, flat and factual and utterly without anger, which was somehow more commanding than shouting. I'm Marshal Eddie's Crane out of the Territorial Office. I have here a certified land registry document restoring this property to the Callahan family under registry law. I also have witness accounts of a firearm discharge against individuals serving that document this morning. You have 2 choices. You can vacate the property peaceably, in which case the assault matter will be handled separately and administratively. Or you can decline. In which case I will enforce the registry document by whatever means necessary and add resisting federal authority to the existing charge. Dusk looked at Cole over the marshal's shoulder. Cole looked back. Something passed between them, the full weight of 3 years, of bad decisions and worse consequences. Of a man who had made himself into something that had no good ending and another man who had spent 14 months trying to find his way back to something worth being. I have documentation of my own, Dusk said. Your documentation was filed under a ruling that was overturned and is no longer legally operative, Crane said. I have reviewed it. It is void. A long silence. The horses shifted. The afternoon wind moved dust across the ground between them in slow, curling patterns, like the land itself was making small decisions. Then the man with the red kerchief, the same one who'd spoken that morning, stepped off the porch and walked away from the house, toward the corral. And began saddling his horse without looking at anyone. It was the signal, though nobody had said it was. 2 more men followed. Then a 4th. Dusk stood alone on the porch, watching his operation dissolve around him the way ice dissolves in water, gradually and then completely. And Cole watched him and saw the precise moment when Harlan Dusk understood that there was no next move. No additional pressure point, no hidden leverage, no angle he hadn't seen yet. He was simply done. It was not a violent moment. That was the thing Cole hadn't expected. He'd ridden back here braced for something explosive, for a last desperate play, a final deployment of the cold fury he'd seen on Dusk's face that morning. He'd been ready for it. What he got instead was a man walking slowly off his own porch and going to his horse and riding away without looking back. Not beaten dramatically. Just finished. Quietly and completely finished. Marshal Crane handled the remaining details with efficient professionalism, which was, Cole thought, how justice should always work but almost never did. Nora walked to the front door of the main house and put her hand on the doorframe. She stood there for a long moment. Cole dismounted, tied his horse, walked over, and stood beside her. Not touching. Just present. It looks smaller than I remembered, she said. Places do. My brother and I used to chase each other around that outbuilding. She nodded toward the smaller structure without looking at it. He was faster than me. I hated that. Is he going to come out here? When he's well enough. She finally looked at the inside of the house. The furniture Dusk's men had moved, the things that weren't theirs. The general evidence of occupancy by people who hadn't cared about the walls they were occupying. This is going to take work. Yes, Cole said. A lot of it. Yes. She turned to look at him. Really look at him, the same long, measuring look she'd given him in the saloon, but different now. The suspicion was gone. What was left was something more complicated and more honest. I don't know what to do with you, she said. I'm not asking you to do anything with me. You helped me. Yes. You could have not helped me. Yes, he agreed. I could have. Why didn't you? He'd been thinking about that, on and off, for 2 days. He'd been thinking about it, in some form, for 14 months. Because I've been hiding from the things I owe the world, he said. And you walked through a door, and I thought, here's one I can actually pay. She looked at him for a long time. Long enough that Prentice, 30 feet away, found something very interesting to look at in the opposite direction. Your arm needs proper attention, she said finally. It does. There's supplies inside. I remember where my mother kept the medical kit. She paused. If it's still there. It might not be. No, she said. But some things survive what you'd expect them not to. She looked at the doorframe under her hand. This house survived. My brother survived. The document survived. She glanced at him sideways. You survived working for Harlan Dusk. Barely. Still counts, she said. She walked inside. After a moment, Cole followed. The sun was going down when Nora came out onto the porch and sat in a chair that had been there when she was 12 years old, its wood gray and familiar. Cole sat on the steps with his arm properly bandaged and a cup of coffee that Nora had made from supplies found in the back of the kitchen, old but still usable, like so many things in that house. Prentice and Daniels had ridden back to town. Royce had disappeared into the landscape the way Royce always did, leaving behind only the absence of him. Marshal Crane had taken Dusk's remaining man, the one Royce had wounded that morning. Alive and bandaged and considerably more cooperative than he'd been 8 hours ago, back toward the county seat. The desert was turning gold and then amber, and then the particular shade of red that only appeared in these few minutes between day and dark. When the sky looked like it was trying to say something important before it lost the light to say it in. They sat in that quiet for a long time. Will Dusk come back? She asked. Not here, Cole said. He'll find somewhere else. That's what men like him do. They don't stop. They relocate. Someone should stop him. Someone should. She looked at him. He looked at the desert. I didn't say it was going to be me, he said. No, she agreed. You didn't. Another silence. The good kind, the kind that has weight without being heavy. What are you going to do? She asked. Now that your hiding place in Red Rock Flats is somewhat less hidden. Cole thought about that. About the road. About 14 months of deliberate emptiness, and what it had and hadn't given him. About a woman who had ridden through a wall of red dust with a rifle on her saddle and storm-colored eyes and a legal document worth more than anything he'd carried in years. I thought I might stay around for a while, he said. If you need help getting the place in order. Until your brother is well enough to come out. She was quiet for a moment. That's practical, she said. Yes. Not romantic. No, he agreed. Not yet. She said nothing. But the edge of her mouth moved in a way that wasn't quite a smile, and was more honest than one. The last of the sun dropped behind the ridge. The stars came out over Red Rock country, sharp and numerous and old. Scattered across the dark in patterns that had watched this land through droughts and floods and wars and the slow accumulation of human stories that the desert absorbed without judgment. Nora Callahan sat on her porch. Cole Dannon sat on her steps. And the land, which had been taken and reclaimed and fought over and nearly bled for, settled into its own long, patient silence. The way land does when it has outlasted another argument about who it belongs to. Here is the thing about that land, and about those two people, and about the whole long chain of choices that had brought them to that porch at that moment. Nothing about it was simple. Cole had been wrong, and then he tried to be right. Nora had been angry, and then she'd learned to be both angry and careful. Harlan Dusk had ridden away without consequence enough to satisfy anyone's sense of fairness. And the world had permitted that the way the world always permits people like Harlan Dusk to move on and start again somewhere else. The sheriff of Red Rock Flats never did enforce anything. The territorial marshal went back to his office with his witness accounts and his charges and a fraction of the justice the situation deserved. And two people sat on a porch in the last light and first dark, carrying everything that had happened to them, not healed, not finished, not saved, just still standing. Which is, in the end, all any of us ever manage on the best days we're given. Cole picked up his coffee. Looked at it. Drank it this time. Some things you stop refusing. Not because they're perfect. Just because the moment is finally right. Leave a comment below. Was Cole right to help her? Would you have trusted him? And for those watching until the very end, what would you have done if you were Nora?